Hey everybody. Hey, I am over at the Hyatt House and we are getting all geared up for a super festive Memorial Day weekend. But I don't have anything to show you over here because nothing got done over here at all this week. We are trying to be patiently waiting for our plumbers. Our plumbers are just so busy. So many of our great subs around here are just backed up. And the truth is, if you don't have to wait for them, then they're probably not the right guy for you. So we are waiting for plumbers, and really absolutely nothing happened this week. But we are going to walk down the street because I have a meeting to talk about some history of the Hyatt House, and I want you to go along with me. So we're going to walk from the Hyatt House toward downtown. We're going to head down Water Street toward downtown. Check out all the flags. I told you it's Memorial Day weekend, and certainly Washington is a festive place to spend it. So let's go for a walk. So we walked up Water Street, and now we're on the corner of Water and Main Street, and we are headed over here to this orange caboose, and that is the Underground Railroad Museum. And we're gonna go meet with Miss Lessa Jones, who is gonna tell us some more about the history of the Hyatt House. Hi everyone. Okay, so I told you we were headed to the Underground Railroad Museum. Here we are with Lessa Jones, and she reached out to me after the last historic video. She's got some awesome stories to tell me about some residents that we didn't know about that lived in the Hyatt House. Okay, Lessa, so you heard me talking about James Eastwood,
Yes.
And that meant something to you.
Absolutely. I was so excited on your last podcast when you were talking about James Eastwood owning the house long before Lockwood Hyatt, because I had only known it as the Hyatt House. I'm Washington born and raised. As a kid, looked at the house pretty much once a week, going to the donut shop that was located nearby. So I was really excited because I'd only known it as the Hyatt House. And trying to place enslaved people that I had always heard about in that house, it wasn't working. Because all the documents I examined, Lockwood Hyatt only had one enslaved person listed as under his name as even maybe being in the house or him owning the person, not that the enslaved person had to live in that house. So when you talked about Eastwood, James Eastwood, that's when it really got excited. Because growing up here, I heard stories about a woman named Guinea Olivia and her sister Guinea Mahala. And the reason their name starts with the word Guinea is because many enslaved people here in Beaufort County, they were brought over from Guinea, West Africa. And to make that designation, other people would refer to them with great reverence as being Guinea. So that's where they got the name Guinea Olivia and Guinea Mahala. And the stories about Guinea Olivia and Guinea Mahala being in that house, one of the most significant ones, they told the story about the house having these windows called the eyelids of the morning. And they were referred to as the eyelids of the morning because in the morning time, they actually worked in that house. They could look out those windows and see ships coming into port, leaving the port. They could see people working on the ships. They would hear stories of abolitionist ships being on the port. And they referred to the windows of the morning as being looking out of the windows, seeing the opportunity that a ship was coming in and going north or maybe going to another country. But they would often refer to it as like your natural eyelids closing. And they referred to the eyelids being closed because they knew they would never be able to take advantage of those opportunities to get on a ship. And so I kept thinking, where are these windows? And at first, when I first heard the story, I was thinking about the two dormer windows on the front. But then when I researched the house, I could still see it under Hyatt's ownership, but the windows were added very much later. And so I'm thinking, well, where are these windows? Are they on the roof? Where are the windows? And so when Casey told me that these two windows right here, can you point them out for me, Casey, because I can't see
one
them.
here, and then there's one on the other side that we don't see.
that would have been facing the river, which you could, because this house essentially was right on the river, located really right on the river. You could look out those windows and see ships, the activity on the ships coming and going. So I jumped for joy when I saw this, because when Eastwood owned the house, I think he bought it in 1801. Is that right, Casey?
Yes.
1801. He's listed as having, I think, the records show anywhere from 13 to 18 enslaved people. And we always heard there was a dozen or more enslaved people in this house or working on this house. So Casey's research has definitely verified those old stories. So I hunt down the old stories. I try to find the research to document them as true. And Casey has definitely identified this house through court records, as you can see in her podcast, as belonging to James Eastwood. So this verifies the story of enslaved people being in this house under James Eastwood at the time, the early 1800s, which we hear about Guinea Olivia and Guinea Mahala being in this house. And it definitely talks about them talking about the eyelids of the morning. So this is such an exciting find. And I'm so thankful for Casey for posting that, because before it was a mystery, and now the mystery has been solved. This is even better than Columbo.
Right, so I have walked back down to the Hyatt House, and I wanted to show you those windows that Lisa was talking about. So one of the two would be the one right up here, right there. Of course, we know that is the window that our ghost likes to look out. And then the other one is on the other side. Now, if you've been here for a while, you know that those dormers were added later. So those were not there pre-Civil War. So those would not be the windows that Guinea Olivia and Guinea Mahala would have been looking out. They would have been the one I just showed you. And then this one up here as well on the third floor. So those would have looked up and down the river. Let's go inside and we'll look at the view from them now. All right, so we are up on the third floor, and this is the window. We're looking towards the Myers house, which would have been here during the Civil War. At that time, the river would have come much closer to those cars. That was before seawalls would have been built, but you can see how those domestic enslaved folks could have looked up the river and seen ships coming and going. Now, if we go all the way to the other side and we look out this window, of course, you guys know this is where our friend the ghost likes to hang out. Now we don't have as much of a view. There's a little bit of water view, but those houses would not have been there. Nothing would have been across the street because it would have just been water. And certainly there would have been a good view looking down the river, looking at ships as they came in from the ocean. So these would be those windows that local lore tells us about. As I told you, those dormers were added later, so those would not be the ones that they would have been using to keep an eye on the river, because there was no windows here. All right, folks, so another pretty short and sweet video this week from the Hyatt House. Thanks to Lisa from the Underground Railroad Museum for sharing her history. I love when my research and someone else's research can inform each other. So come back next week. Hey, maybe we'll have some progress and we'll have a plumber here. I will keep my fingers crossed, but not hold my breath. But pretty soon we will have more activity to show you at the Hyatt House. Until then, I'm going to keep doing research and finding more cool history about the house. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.